Are you gonna help film? Come here. Good boy. Yes. Oh, okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hello friends, welcome to today's video. Oh, the chickens are coming now. Look at this. Excuse me, madams. What is this? Oh, and the cat's coming. Welcome friends. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you stop by and you're excited to be here, just like my chickens are. If we have not met before, hello. My name is Tanya. Oh, hello, this is Tyson. I like talking about books. I live in Minnesota and I recently moved to a 6.5 acre farm, homestead, I don't know what you want to call it. But I love talking about books and I thought it would be perfect today to be outside because we only have so many nice, days in Minnesota before the winter comes. Which I don't even want to mention that, but in today's video I'm going to talk about the books that I read in July. So if you want to see and hear if you want to hear about those and you're curious, stick around. And yeah, so actually most of these I don't even have in front of me because I've actually been utilizing the library a lot and just reading through that, or audiobooks through Libby or Hoopla and things like that. So I only really have one in print. But to give you a little bit of a rundown, so I read 7 books total in July. 5 of them were romances, and then 2 were kind of mystery, a little bit thriller, not really, I don't know. I think they're supposed to kind of be, but like mystery genre, I will say. So 7 total. So yeah, let's get into these and talk about them. The first book that I read is one of the mystery books, and that is The Leftover Women. And I just kind of randomly came across this at the library. I'd never heard of this. I didn't know what to expect. It is a shorter book, and it's kind of like a historical mystery, I would say. I wouldn't say it's really a thriller. It's a pretty short book, and it follows kind of intertwining plot lines of characters, but it looks at the topic of the one-child policy in China historically and how many Chinese families were only allowed one child, and so due to that, a lot of girls were put up for adoption in other foreign countries like the United States. And so it follows the story of a rich family in New York, I believe, and they adopt, there's more into the plot, but they adopt a little girl from China. And then it follows the story of a Chinese woman, kind of starting from her childhood and things that she went through, and she's trying to escape an abusive marriage and some other things that had happened, and their lives somehow, I don't want to get away, but they intertwine in New York. Now, I think it was an interesting, historically, I like historical fiction. I found it interesting, but this book is it's like 200 something pages, which is a short read, but I felt like there was just too much into it. There's a romance plot, there's kind of a thriller plot, a mystery plot, this historical plot, there's just all these plots, and I felt like it had good beginnings, but it was I think it was execution for me personally, because I felt like the romance seemed too insta-lovey and just was too convenient in ways, like how it was written. There wasn't enough time for it to really develop and for me to believe that relationship between the characters. It wasn't like a horrible read, but it just wasn't one. I wish there was just more. This is one of those times where I wish the book was actually longer, to be honest, because I think it could have been expanded a little bit better. So I ended up rating it a 3 out of 5. Next book that I read, this was one that I had heard a lot about, and I was curious, and I finally got to it, was The 7-Year Slip. I ended up rating this 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this book. If you don't know what it's about, it's a romance, but it's almost kind of like a fantasy, not fantasy, I don't even know what to call it, what is that? I can't think of the word, but I wouldn't say it's fantasy, but it has elements of almost like a time travel, because there's Clementine, or Lemon, she has her aunt's apartment, and it's an apartment that can go 7 years back in time. And so it follows her as she meets this person that is technically 7 years in the past, but they fall in love, and it's kind of this relationship of how does it connect. So it goes a little bit between different present time and technically the past, I guess. But I really enjoyed how this was written. I really loved just the words and like the language that the author used, it was just beautifully written, and I really did enjoy it. I didn't know how I would feel about it. I do feel like I wish there was a little bit more explained in regards to her aunt who passed away in the story. I don't want to give the details of that because it's part of it, but I just wish that more had been kind of hashed out. Even though I know it's technically Clementine's story, I just would have wished for that a little bit more. At the end, I was kind of left wanting more there, but it was still beautifully written. I really enjoyed it, and that was one of the first books that I had read by this author. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5. I really liked it. Then the next book I read, which is also just a random find on my library shelves, was The Librarians, and it's a collection of 4 historical romances, and they are short little stories, which I really appreciate. I was just kind of in the mood. Okay there, ladies. I was just kind of in the mood for a short story, and they're all based on the Appalachian library book women. And if you know about that, it's during kind of the Great Depression time when there was this initiative to provide jobs, especially for unmarried women, and to also give reading and library resources to people in the Appalachian Mountains that were very remote and are not able to get to the library. And so there were these women that would ride on horseback or donkeys and things and deliver essentially magazines, books, whatever, throughout the mountains. And I don't know why, I just find that whole topic very interesting. I've read a few books, and it just is intriguing to me. And so I was really excited to find this little collection at my library, and I really loved it. Were they predictable, cheesy romance stories? Yes, they were. But also I felt like I was in the mood for that. And I really liked it, and it was just adorable and sweet, and again, predictable and cheesy, but it was just really cute. The elements of the historical elements made it interesting, and learning more about that time and learning about the routes and things like that. So yeah, I ended up rating it a 3 out of 5. Again, it's anything extraordinary, but it was just a fun palate cleanser that I really did personally enjoy. And this next book is The Maidens, and this was one that I had also had on my list for a while. It is written by the author who wrote The Silent Patient, which I read, but to be honest, I didn't see the hype with it. And so I wanted to try The Maidens and see if it was any different or how I kind of felt. And I think I felt the same way. I feel like this author, it just was not, I think maybe me and him are just, we don't mesh, which again, not everybody meshes with every author. But I ended up rating this 3 out of 5. And I think, again, there's interesting elements, but for some reason for me, it just kind of felt drawn out. It felt kind of random, but not, if that even makes sense. And I wasn't really super sucked into reading. It took me, I think, a month and a half to really finish, because I kept just stopping. I wasn't really into it. And it follows the story of this woman, which again, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, but she is a therapist, and she has an adoptive niece, I guess. Yeah, I think it's her adoptive niece, who lives in Cambridge. So she's going to college there, and then suddenly there is a murder of a young woman who is a friend of the niece. So it's someone from Cambridge College, and so this young woman turns up dead, and she's kind of killed in a brutal way. And then she's convinced, there's this theory that it's this professor on campus that is killing these women, or the maidens as they are called. And then there is another murder on campus, and so you're kind of following her, trying to figure out how she can prove that this professor is getting away with these murders. But I just felt like, again, it was one of those things where there was a lot going on, and I think it was supposed to be, I get it, it's part of the plot twist when you're reading thrillers, it kind of almost to lead you astray, so you're not sure who did it. Was it this person? Was it that? And it was a good plot twist at the end. It was a little bit, I predicted it a little bit, not all of it. So that was kind of a nice little twist, but I just felt like the experience of actually reading it, for me personally, I did not find very engaging or exciting. Yeah, so I don't know, take with that. I think maybe if you enjoy, for example, books about therapy and mind and psychology, I don't always really enjoy those kinds of reads. So maybe you can try it out, and if you really like The Silent Patient, maybe you would enjoy this one as well. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I'm going to be reading anything else by this author. I just don't think he's my kind of author for books. But yeah, I wanted to show you all. I went to go get my battery. Look at this. Are you guys my groupies? #1 fans? Say please subscribe to my mom's channel so that she can get to 1,000 subscribers and then buy me more kibbles. And more books. But mostly kibbles, right? Priorities. They're so cute. Good boy, yes. Sorry, I had to quick switch out my battery. Then the next few books that I read, and this one I have in print and the other one, but it is part of a series, and I was really excited because this was, so I tried one other Abby Jimenez book this summer, the one about the summer, her latest release, just for the summer, and I really loved it. And so I got really excited to try other Abby Jimenez books because Abby Jimenez is also a Minnesota author, and I'm here in Minnesota, and I've heard a lot about her books as well, and I decided to try it out. So I wanted to try The Friend Zone because I actually had this one on my TBR cart, so got one off my TBR cart. And first, to be honest, I was a little bit annoyed. I ended up rating it 3.5 out of 5. Because, I don't know, something about the character, I don't like miscommunication and things like that, but sorry, getting ahead of myself. This is a romance if you have not read it, but basically there's this character, Kristen, and she is very kind of like no drama, like very blunt, to the point, and she is she's a maid of honor in her best friend's wedding that's coming up, and then she's helping plan it and things like that, and then she meets Josh, and he is the best man. Excuse me, madam. And Josh is the best man in the wedding, so they obviously are kind of around together, and basically they actually start realizing that they're kind of having feelings for each other, but he really wants to have a very large family and have a lot of children, and she actually is kind of dealing with the decision, but she struggles with infertility and other kind of issues with being able to like carry children and give birth, and so it deals with that topic, so just a heads up. And I was curious about that because I am a mother myself, and I just find any kind of those topics interesting to me also just as a woman. And but there were parts of it that were just frustrating to me, especially the beginning half, like I feel like, you know, of the book, because I feel like a lot of the situations could have been avoided if they just talked. Like I was like, you are adults, use your words. Oh, excuse me, that's right. She also thinks that, right? Okay. Yes, you're a little smushy. But I was just kind of like, just talk, like use your words, you know, and it was frustrating. I have to say that about halfway in, especially the last like quarter of the book, I really got into it, and I just really started connecting more with the characters, especially Sloane, her best friend. And the way the book ended, I just was like, oh, what? Oh my gosh. And so then I really wanted to read the second book, but I ended up rating it like a 3.5 out of 5, which is not bad, but I felt like a big, again, that frustration of like miscommunication. I think like half the book could have been avoided if they were like, this is what's happening. Oh, this is what's happening. This is what I think. Okay, let's figure it out, you know, like, so anyway, and so then after I read this, I wanted to read the second one right away, which is the Happy Ever playlist, right? Happily Ever playlist, I believe, and it follows the story of Sloane, her best friend from the first book. And I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to give away parts from the first book, so if you read this one, but I will say it follows Sloane's love story, and I really, really enjoyed this one. I ended up rating it for, honestly, maybe I'd say even 4.5 out of 5. I really liked this book. I loved how it was written, the banter between her and the main MC, like it just was so, I don't know, I loved it. It was funny and sweet, and I also really liked this book because it does have actual songs, like playlists before each chapter, so if you want to put in a playlist and like listen to it while you're reading, it just adds a different element to your reading. I really enjoyed it, and I I really loved it. It was sweet. There was also some redeeming things. Again, I don't want to give too much away because it'll give a little bit away from the first book. But I have to say, if you maybe read this one and you were like, I don't know, try reading the second one. I feel like the second one, to me, was a lot better. And I feel like because you do see Kristen and Josh in the second book, and you kind of see that continuation like within that same world again, but I just liked Sloane's story better, and I think it was just done a lot better. There wasn't really a lot of that like miscommunication as much as there was in this one. So overall, I'm just really eager to try other Abby Jimenez books because I've really liked pretty much most of all her books now that I've read, other than this one. Again, didn't hate it, but I think I'm just really excited to read her other books as well. The last book that I read for the month, and this is the book called Where We Ended, and this is part of a series, and it is by the author Ashley Munoz, and she has her books on Kindle Unlimited, and it is part of this motorcycle club that, what is it called? Something Ridge. I forget what it is, but it basically follows these motorcycle clubs, or kind of like gangs in a way. I believe there is it Virginia or somewhere, but there's all these different clubs, and so it follows the different men. Like each book follows on a couple, follows a couple, but they're all within the same world essentially. So I definitely recommend reading from the beginning. Now with this book, I was really excited because it focuses on, sorry, he's really gonna breathe into the camera. But it follows the story of Natty and Silas, and this is a couple that I was really like waiting to hear, because you kind of hear about them and see tidbits and teasers in the other books, and I was just so curious for the story. I couldn't wait to find out what exactly, you know, is their history. And I ended up reading the book 3 out of 5, and here's my thing. I felt like one of the things is I am not, so these books do contain spice, and I have to say that is one thing I do not like about these books. I understand that books some have spice. I am not completely against spice in books. It's not always my favorite, depends how it's done, but I am just really not a fan of her spice. I just don't really like it, and I get it. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's a whole different world with like motors, I don't know. It's, I'm not trying, you know, but it's just, it's kind of weird, and I don't really like it. I just will say that. I'm not a big fan of the spice, but I love the world of like the motorcycle clubs, and like learning about them and just like seeing. It's not at all how I would ever live my life or anything remotely to what my life is. It's kind of like mafia romances, but on motorcycles, you know, like it's sometimes a little bit dark. But it's just, I don't know, it's very, like, I get into the story, I really want to know, and the character development is done well. I'm not a big fan of the spice. It's just kind of, it's not my cup of tea. But I have to say, also I think with this book, I was a little bit let down by the story, because, I don't know, I think I hyped it up in my mind a lot to be like, what is it? And I feel like there was a lot of disconnect in their story. And that is part of it, is because they're separated times. They've known each other since they were children. There were times where there were gaps, you know, where he was gone and all these things. But I just felt like I didn't really get too much time with them I don't know. It just, for some reason, it didn't like connect to me like I thought or expected it to. But I do have to say that I really enjoyed the epilogue of it, because it did wrap up a series. And I feel like it did a really great job kind of giving you know, the kind of ending details about each of the other couples that we saw in the previous 3 stories. So I thought that was really good, and it really tied things together. I really enjoyed the ending, and I think it ended the series on a, you know, really well, on a good note. Maybe read at your own discretion, I guess. I don't know. I skipped a lot, but it's on Kindle Unlimited if you want to check it out. So yeah, but I think it just was one of those things where I never thought that I would even remotely enjoy the kind of world, something totally random, but it was just something, a really kind of different romance that I've never read before for me personally. So there you have it. Those are my 7 books that I read. I hope you all have had a, madam, my gosh, I hope you all have had a wonderful July and you're getting ready into August. Thank you so much for watching this video. Comment down below. What was your favorite read of the month? Or, you know, even worse, I always say I kind of want to know people's feedback. What was something that was really great and maybe not so great that you read this past month? Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.